a ton of very good fridge play units, the long-awaited Dokkanfest Namek Goku, and the event that completely redefined the way we saw units. Stay tuned while we uncover the months of May and June 2019 in today's Dokkan History video. The month of May started with the Gohan, Goku and Goten Day Celebration, which came with a teaser of a new challenging event, coming for Goku Day. The only information we got from that teaser at the time is that we were finally going to be able to see the full transformations of all of the transforming units the game had. So it was safe to assume that the event was going to be very long, which was very exciting. The celebration also came with your typical Logan campaign, but this one gave a lot of stones, like 42 stones in the span of 3 days, as well as 3 copies of the special Book of War item, which you could exchange in the Baba shop for copies of the family Kamehameha units. So definitely not bad if you didn't have them rainbowed, since they still had some use in some niche EZA events, and I'm sure Goten was still a decent unit. Oh, and the Golden Week celebration wasn't over. They dropped another round of missions, which gave a total of 20 Dragon Stones. Like, this was really a new era, not only for Japan, but for Dokkan itself. Like, the generosity was just something else that year. The Legendary Goku Event was out the next day, and there's a lot to say here. That event completely changed how we viewed units. Units like INT Goku Black and Physical Future Gohan, who were seen as some of the worst category leaders, were now some of the best units in that new event. So the Legendary Goku event was essentially just a very long and difficult Dokkan event. Like, that's essentially what it was. The INT UI Goku Dokkan event, but with more phases and bigger stats. So you wanted to bring units that could stack or that at least got stronger the longer the fight went on. And looking back at the stats of the different phases, it's really crazy to think that the MUI Goku of that event used to be one of the hardest hitting bosses in the game. Like, his super attack only did 400k damage. We now have bosses launching 20 million plus super attacks. Like, bro, what the hell happened? Like, that's just crazy. Think about it, bro. To tank one of MUI Goku's super attack at the time, you had to stack defense for like 1 billion turns. And now we have bosses that can do like 10 times that amount turn 1. And units that can tank that damage turn 1. Crazy to see how far the game has come. But anyways, let's go over the units that completely dominated that new event. The first characters that came to mind at the time were the transferring Goku, Vegeta and Frieza, since they were the ones with the impossible to see transformations. But the truth is that they were actually not that good in the event, at least not as TURs. As crazy as this might sound, they actually transformed too quickly, and since they couldn't stack in their final transformations, they couldn't get to the level of defense that was needed for them to survive the last phase of the event. But thankfully they stacked infinitely in base, so you're actually better off reversing them into their UR forms. Like, has that ever happened again? Where a unit was generally better as an SSR than a TUR in an event? Like, I don't think so. I still have base transforming Goku's super attack in mind. I've seen that super attack animation 1 billion times grinding that event. Because yes, you actually needed to beat that event 7 times at a time to get all of the rewards. So the strategy was to just find one team you could beat it with consistently and then just spam that team, which was exactly what I did. And that team for me was transforming Vegeta's team, but with him as a reversed UR. The fact that his leader skill buff was weaker also helped, since it meant that he could stack for longer. Like, sure, it took forever to beat the event, but after a certain point, you just couldn't lose. Then we obviously had LRKL and Caulifla and her banner units. They just turned that event into a complete joke. Like, they just ran over the event like it was literally nothing, since they not only stacked but launched 1 billion super attacks each turn. And the crazy part is that even Tech Caulifla dominated the event, even though she was Tech, since she was just invincible until last phase, and by that point she had already stacked so much that INT MUI Goku just couldn't kill her, even with a super attack. This was just crazy. Actually, even LRKL and Caulifla's TUR and SSR were monstrous there. They were literally just as good as her banner units in that event. Then we had Tech Vegito Blue. People thought at the time that this guy was going to completely dominate the event, and honestly, he could, but you absolutely needed him with dupes and some very good RNG. Like, my Tech Vegito Blue was at 55% and he completely sucked there. The LR was way better. Like, LR Strength Vegito Blue was just an absolute monster here, and definitely the best fish play unit on that event. You just had to be careful to not lose too much health so that he could continue to stack with his 12k super attack. We also had Strength Spur Trunks. That guy was just like a beast. And you didn't even need to keep him on rotation. You could literally just flood him off and let him stack in slot 3, and he could genuinely hold his own there. Something that was pretty crazy to see for a unit from 2017. We then had the 3rd year fusions. We finally had an event where you could see them transform consistently, and bro, their fusions were cracked there. They just had so much stats that they could genuinely hold their own defensively without needing any sort of defensive mechanic. It obviously helped that Gogeta was physical and the final phase was int, but Vegito just had such a high base defensive stat that he could generally tank MUI Goku's normal attacks type neutral, which was actually pretty impressive. And with an item, he could easily tank an MUI Goku's super attack. And bro, Vegeta was just doing so much damage with his counters. Like that rotation of LR Super Vegito and LR Super Gogeta was just insane. And definitely one of the strongest rotations in Dokkan's history. And if them transformed wasn't crazy enough, they also had a free Senzu in their kit, which was just so valuable since there was only so many items you could bring into the event. I also remember Tech Android 18 being pretty good there. You had to keep her on rotation, and after a couple of supers, she could generally get very tanky, and you just had to float her on the final phase, or use an item, and you were good to go. We also had physical future Gohan, like I mentioned earlier. That guy gained damage reduction each turn, and was physical, so he was literally untouchable by the time you got to the final phase. And the cool thing about him is that you could float him off. Like most of the good units on that event had to be kept on rotation to stack, but him, you could just keep him in slot 3 the whole event, and he was just as good. Like, he was crazy. Talking about future Gohan, INT Goku Black was also phenomenal here. Like, the guy greatly stacked defense on super, but I do remember him having the same problem as physical future Gohan, meaning that he was just a tank there, and barely did any damage. But that's maybe just because I had him at 55%. Like, you absolutely needed to crit with that guy, or otherwise he was just hidden like a feather. INT Hercule and AGL Golden Frieza were also very good there. Like, bro, they were so ridiculously broken defensively that you could bring them into the event without any problem. Like, they could easily hold their own against MUI Goku. And now that I think about it, Strength Super Buu was probably one of the few transform units that actually wasn't that crazy here. Like, his transformations just weren't strong enough defensively. But his team though, that guy led the category that had all of the transferring units. So yeah, you could cook something with him. The LR% 4s were also viable in the Legendary Goku event. Like, they weren't top tier or anything, but they could hold their own there, even though their active skill mechanic wasn't anything crazy here. Same with INT Kid Goku. Like, he wasn't anything crazy, but could definitely hold his own, which I'm pointing out because a lot of units just couldn't. As a matter of fact, most units in the game just couldn't do anything once you got to the last phase of that event. We then had Tech Kaioken Goku and Physical Vegeta, who were also very good there. Like, those were so good for a free-to-play player, especially Vegeta. That guy was just a monster defensively on that event, even though he got most of his defense on super. LR Trunks was also genuinely a viable card here. With him being physical, you just had to keep him on rotation for the defense he got on super to not wear off, and he could actually hold his own there. Then we had one of the MVPs of the event, Tech transforming Trunks. Like, after LRKL and Caulifla and their T-War, this was probably the second best unit in the Legendary Goku event. He was clearly built for it, being able to stack indefinitely on his second transformation. And then you just had to pop his active skill in the last phase, and with a couple of key spheres, he could still hold his own defensively, while also being effective against all types, and could do just so much damage. And for the players who were very dedicated, or just had way too much time on their hand, you could generally cheese that event with SR Boga Magetta and the right units. You were pretty much invincible there, but the event took forever to beat. As you can see, bro, it took that guy 10 hours to beat it. I have no idea how he got the energy to do that. Like, imagine sitting down and grinding the Legendary Goku event for 10 hours just for 5 Dragon Stones and 5 SRs. That guy was definitely on something, and that something was probably Gfuel. I think they still got some Gear 5 collector boxes in stock, so hurry up, because not only does the shaker look amazing, that flavor looks so good. Gfuel never misses with their mango flavors, so I can only imagine how good this one is going to taste. And if you don't really consume caffeine, they got a one-piece stainless steel shaker. I picked up the Naruto one a while back, and it did not disappoint. I'll leave the links in the description down below and the pinned comment. But anyways, what about the rewards? The event gave a total of 35 stones and 35 tickets. Tickets that we could use on a new banner. A banner that only had Goku characters, but no Dokkanfest Gokus. Just the regular SSR Gokus and LRs per Century Goku, who was the big prize here. And honestly, from what I remember, the banner wasn't anything crazy. Like, it didn't even have guaranteed SSRs. So some players genuinely just pulled 35 SRs. Which was honestly pretty crazy. Like, I think the only good thing I remember pulling from that banner was a few copies of the Tech God Goku, which was obviously still a very good unit. We then had the EZA of Physical Goku Black that same day, an EZA that was actually not bad in the Legendary Goku event. Well, if you had him with dupes, and only on Global with his higher stats. On GP, there was just no way you could run that guy over in Goku Black. But yeah, Physical Goku Black now led the physical type for Tricky and 120% HP attack and defense, which was definitely very good for Battlefield. He gained 15% attack and defense per key spheres obtained, 1 key up to 5 for every attack received, and was an orb changer, while also gaining an additional 5% attack and defense per key spheres obtained when facing a Goku's Family category enemy. Like, against a Goku's Family category enemy, that guy was very good, even on GP. But without his orb changing ability, he really wasn't all that. Like, his stats were slower, and not having that key support just made him very inconsistent, since all he had to provide was stats, and those stats were reliant on the key spheres on the board. His EZA event was very easy though, since he was weak to Goku's family category units, one of the biggest categories in the game, so you had plenty of options. They also randomly added some new stages to the Dragon Ball Super Broly story event, with a new free-to-play Gogeta, and gave him an EZA day 1. He was a sub-leader for the fusion category and the strength type, which was okay I guess. He then stacked attack on Super, had 77% attack and defense at the start of turn, and then he gained 20% attack and defense with a Goku's family category around the team, and an additional 20% attack and defense with a Vegeta's family category ally on the team. So you had to run this guy on the movie heroes category. That was literally the only team where you could get all of his passive active, and he wasn't even that great there. I guess he was effective against all types when facing the movie bosses category enemy, but him being strength kind of killed any chance that guy had of being good in Rightful Broly's EZA event. I farmed him because he was Gogeta, but I genuinely never used him after that. Like, that guy was just dead on release. A couple of days later, and they dropped a new story event with a new free-to-play unit. Dearest in Monaka's costume wasn't anything crazy, like that card was also dead on release. Like, he sacrificed 7% HP on Super, gained 77% attack for 4 turns after receiving an attack, and gained up to 77% attack depending on the amount of HP he had. The less HP, the greater the boost, and as you can guess, those two buffs were calculated separately, so he could have up to 213% attack, but you had to be very low HP to have that much attack, and with his low free-to-play stats, it just wasn't anything that crazy anyways. I genuinely never farmed that guy. Like, to this day, I still don't have him in my box. Like, bro, honestly, just Monaka as a character is just something. Like, like, what are those, bro? Generally, what are those, bro? I guess his event did come with a new farmable currency that we could trade for Elder Guys, so that was good. A week later, and it was time for the 30th World Tournament. A pretty significant milestone. Like 30 World Tournaments. That's just crazy. But they surprisingly didn't do anything that special for that World Tournament. They just dropped 3 new cards to the World Tournament ticket banner. Tech Cyborg Tao had a 30% chance of stunning the enemy on Super for 2 turns, had 100% attack and defense on Super, and gained 20% attack and defense per attack received, up to 80%. Above that was for some reason not calculated separately. So fully built up, he only had 180% attack and defense post Super, with his low free-to-play stats and garbage link set. That guy was indeed dead on release. Strength had Shine lowered attack and defense on Super, had 80% attack and defense with a Goku's family category ally on the team, and gained an additional 100% attack for 3 turns after receiving an attack. Above that was, as you would guess, calculated separately for a total boost of 260% attack. So he was definitely okay on like in Goku's team. OX King was actually a viable option on the Legendary Goku event. He stacked defense on Super, had 150% defense at the start of turn, and gave Dragon Ball Saga category allies 2 key and 30% attack and defense. Like, that kit was just phenomenal for the Legendary Goku event. So even as an SR, he could still cook there. You just had to be very careful his first few appearances, and once you got the ball rolling with his stacks, he could definitely hold his own. But he did no damage as an SR with his very low stats. So he wasn't like a top tier option or anything, but definitely viable. As for the new World Tournament reward card, Tech Gotenks stacked attack and defense on Super, so he was definitely good in the Legendary Goku event. Just with that, then he changed AGL key spheres to Tech at the start of turn, gave Youth category allies 20% attack and 10% defense, and Fusion category allies 20% attack and 10% defense. So he gave all of the Gotenkses in the game 40% attack and 20% defense. So definitely not bad. Not something you could bring into SBR with his low stats, but definitely something you could bring into the Legendary Goku event. A week later, and they teased the next Dokkanfest. Namek Goku was finally going to get a Dokkanfest card. He was out 2 days later, and he was a transforming unit, which was very hype at the time. He was the first proper leader for the Planet Namek Saga category, and introduced the Super Saiyan category into the game. That category was so cracked for the Legendary Goku event. It had the 30 fusions, Tech Transforming Trunks, LR Future Trunks, and Physical Future Gohan. Like, this team was probably the best team for the Legendary Goku event, and he himself was very good there. In base, his super attack raised all allies attack by 30% for 1 turn, then he had 77% attack and defense at the start of turn, 15% attack and defense per attack received, up to 59%. Above that was actually calculated calculated separately, so fully built up he had 181% attack and defense, which was definitely pretty good. Then he transformed into Super Saiyan Goku starting from the 3rd turn from the start of battle when below 70% HP. Like, the condition wasn't bad, but I do remember that HP threshold being a problem if your team was too strong, since you could just end up not transforming that guy early enough for him to start stacking. Because yes, transformed, he stacked defense on Super, had 80% attack and defense at the start of turn, a 30% chance of guarding all attacks, an additional 59% attack after receiving an attack, above that was also calculated separately for a total boost of 186% attack, and then guarded all attacks and gained 50% crit chance for 3 turns after receiving an attack with his guard activated, which meant that if you were facing a physical type enemy, you were guaranteed to proc that part of his passive, so that even made him usable in SBR, even though he was clearly built for the Legendary Goku event. He then had a Rage form that could be activated starting from the 5th turn from the start of battle when below 50% HP. In his Rage form, he had 2 super attacks, the Meteor Smash when he had between 8 to 11 ki, and the Super Meteor Smash at 12 ki. One had a Supreme Damage multiplier and the other an Immense Damage multiplier, and he was also a Rainbow Orb Changer, which was definitely good for a Rage form. Like, honestly, his Rage form was really just like a cherry on top type of thing. Like, he didn't really need it, but it was still cool to have. And bro, his animations, bro, oh my god. Like, talking about his multiple super attacks, this guy's animations were phenomenal. Some of the best animations we had seen yet. In my opinion, those were probably the best animations in the game at the time. Like, they were just so insane. Goku also came with a new banner unit. AGL Final Form Frieza was a sub-leader for the Planet Namek category and the AGL type, had an AoE super attack that had a 30% chance of sealing the attacked enemy's super attack, so a very good super attack for SBR. Then he had 80% attack and defense at the start of turn, an additional 70% attack with a 50% chance of stunning the attacked enemy for 1 turn when facing only 1 enemy, so that part of his passive was definitely very niche. Then he had 5 ki and 50% attack and defense when facing 2 or more enemies. So yeah, that guy was built for SBR, and even the World Tournament. He was definitely very good in those events. As for Goku's banner, it wasn't bad. It featured transforming Goku and Frieza, who were very good in the Legendary Goku event, Tech Golden Frieza, who was now better than ever with his recent EZA, and Angel Golden Frieza, who was not only still useful for AGL's Per Century Goku's EZA, but also Tech Golden Frieza's EZA, and Tech's Per Century Goku, who I guess was still okay on Super Century Bardock's team, like not a must summon banner, but an okay one. This celebration also came with a new story event, with a new fully farmable Fresh Play unit, a unit that also had an EZA that same day. Physical Second Form Frieza was a phenomenal Fresh Play unit. He was a sub-leader for the Transformation Boost category, had an AoE super attack while greatly raising his attack on Super for 1 turn, had 60% attack and defense at the start of turn, gained 6 ki and an additional 40% attack and defense when facing 2 or more enemies, an additional 60% attack when attacking an enemy that had his defense lowered, and he also had an active skill that could be activated when facing 3 or more enemies, starting from the 3rd turn from the start of battle. And that active skill lowered the attack and defense of the attacked enemy, so that guy was just a phenomenal Fresh Play unit for SBR, or even the World Tournament. His EZA event was also very easy. Like, he was weak to Namekian's category units, but I remember just brute forcing it with a mono strength team. Like, you didn't need to bring any Namekian units like at all, and thankfully, because that category was just was so bad, bro. We then had the EZA of INT Buuhan the next month. He now led the INT type for 4 ki and 100% HP attack and defense, so very good for battlefield. Greatly lowered attack and defense on Super, and his special super attack was just now crazier than ever with an SA15 immense damage multiplier. He then gained 17% attack and 10% defense, while also recovering 10,000 HP per key spheres obtained. Like, bro, his base stats post EZA were pretty good, so those buffs went a long way with him. And the healing was also pretty cracked. Like, 10,000 HP per key sphere was just insane. He also recovered 15% HP at the end of the turn after delivering a final blow. No idea what they were thinking there. Like, outside of SBR, that part of his passive was pretty useless, and even in SBR it wasn't like all that. Like, he wasn't anything broken, but still a very good EZA. As for Buuhan's EZA, also very easy if you had the right units. Like, he was weak to the Padarak category, and that category was stacked. It had plenty of good physical units, so you had options. They also at the same time dropped a Podarak category banner. I normally don't cover those since they're pretty much useless, but that one was pretty good. It featured Gowasu, Kefla, and West Supreme Kai. I'm pretty sure I summoned on that banner at the time, or at least thought about it, because all of the featured units were at least very cool to me. So even if they weren't all good, I didn't mind the dupes for their future EZAs. Almost a week later and we had the second part of Namek Goku Celebration, and it came with a new LR. LR Strength Full STR Frieza was a sub-leader for a full power category and the extreme strength type, so definitely a very good leader skill for Battlefield. Then he had a mega colossal damage multiplier on both of his super attacks, but lost 8% HP on his 12 key super, while greatly raising his attack for 1 turn on his 18 key super. Then had 2 key and 80% attack and defense at the start of turn, and an additional key and attack the less HP he had, up to an additional 7 key and 70% attack when below 30% HP, and also had guaranteed crit when below that same threshold. I personally remember not really liking this guy's design at the time. He would have been a billion times better in my opinion if he gained those buffs when above those HP threshold and not below. Like honestly, if you had physical fire Frieza with dupes, there was just no way you would summon for that guy. Like that guy was just very mid and not that good of an LR. And you can guess that his banner was also complete garbage, so that was just an easy skip. A little over a week later, and we had another Dragon Ball Heroes campaign with a billion new units and awakenings. Let's start with the awakenings. Ageless Super Sentry Trunks was now a very decent tank for the Super Sentry category. He raised his defense by 30% for 9 turns on super, had 100% attack and defense at the start of turn, disabled the enemy's guard, and had a high chance of guarding all attacks. With his defense stacking on super, the guy was generally not bad in the Legendary Goku Event and didn't even need his guard there. But the guard was kind of important in SBR, like tight disadvantage this guy could get cooked in a short event since he needed time to build his defense up. Agel Darkness Toa lowered attack on super, gave extreme class allies 3 key and 30% attack and defense, then she healed you back to full HP and gave extreme class allies an additional 50% attack and defense once only when you drop below 30% HP. So she was very good in SBR. Like that free Senzu was so helpful there, as well as her attack debuff on super. And bro, 80% attack and defense, like this was the best super type buff in the game, even though you could only have it for 1 turn. Angel Baby Janemba massively lowered defense on super, had 80% attack and defense, 50% dodge chance, and recovered 10% HP at the start of turn. So he had a very solid kit. He was generally very good in SBR, and was also a very good linking partner for LR Super Baby 2. He shared 4 links with him: Tech Great Saiyaman 3, raised super class allies attack by 25% for 1 turn on super, gained 17% attack and defense and 3% crit chance for time travelers category ally of the team, lost 30% defense after receiving an attack, a debuff that was unfortunately calculated separately, which for the first time was actually a bad thing since it made him lose more than 30% defense, but he had counters and built-in crit chance, so he did a lot of damage and was a very fun unit to use. Personally, I remember getting him at 55% and the guy just couldn't take a hit, but I'm sure that if you had him with dupes, he could generally cook in SBR with some items. In Super Sentry Gohan was the offensive version of Trunks. He raised his attack by 30% for 9 turns on super, had 100% attack and defense at the start of turn, and gained an additional 60% attack and defense on super. A buff that was calculated separately for a total boost of 220% attack and defense. Actually, him getting some buffs on super was even better than you'd think, because the Super Sentry category was led by Super Sentry Bardock, and that guy was also a support type unit. So with Bardock's support, the guy had 284% attack and defense post super, which was just insane. And he was also LR Super Sentry Goku's best linking partner, sharing 5 links with him. So yeah, that guy was pretty good. In Kid Buu Babidi had a 50% chance of stunning the attacked enemy on super, had 80% defense at the start of turn, gave all allies 40% defense when above 80% HP, then recovered 5% HP and gave all allies 3 key and 40% attack when below 80% HP. So he was like a reverse physical Kid Buu. But from what I remember, his link set was just complete garbage, and just him having his key restricted behind an HP threshold just wasn't great. Strength Sealess greatly lowered defense on super, had 100% attack and defense on super, gave Artificial Life Forms category allies 1 key and 20% attack, and Time Travelers category allies 1 key and 20% attack. So the guy had a very decent base kit, but I remember people thinking that he was bad because he supported a category that he wasn't even in. Like that was a first at the time, but it didn't make him any worse. And anyways, he had a transformation and was way better transformed. He transformed starting from the 5th turn from the start of battle, fused Sealess, now massively lowered defense on super, had 3 key and 60% attack and defense at the start of turn, and gained 120% attack and defense on super, a buff that was calculated separately, for a total boost of 252% attack and defense post super. So a very solid kit transform. Strength Super Paikuhan greatly lowered attack on super, which was, like you already know, very good in SBR. Then he had 3 key and 80% attack and defense at the start of turn, launched an additional attack that had a 30% chance of becoming a super attack when facing only one enemy, and launched an additional attack that had a 50% chance of becoming a super attack when facing 2 or more enemies. So he clearly had a kit made for SBR. As for the new units, Zeno Vegeta was a sub-leader for the Vegeta's Family category, so pretty decent. Then he stacked defense on super, so very good for the Legendary Goku event, had 77% attack and defense at the start of turn, and gave Vegeta's family category allies 2 ki and 30% attack and defense. So his base kit was phenomenal, and he had the potential to be insane with a future awakening. I personally remember using him in the Legendary Goku event, and he was very good there. I remember keeping him in rotation with like Transforming Super Trunks, and there were definitely like a decent rotation there. Xenogoku was just the Goku's family counterpart of Vegeta, so he had a better leader skill and support, but he stacked attack instead of defense on super, so he couldn't really do much in the Legendary Goku event, but still had some use in some EZA events or Dokkan Battlefield. The celebration also came with a new story event, with 2 new free play units. AMS was actually very good from what I remember. He lowered attack and defense on super, had 50% attack and defense at the start of turn, gave extreme class allies 2 ki and 30% defense, and artificial life forms category allies 30% attack. Like with the support and attack debuff he had on super, he was actually one of the best free play units in the game for SBR. He could generally cook there. Great Saiyaman 4 was also pretty good. He stacked attack and defense on super, so you can guess that just with that he was a beast in the Legendary Goku event. Then he had 50% attack and defense at the start of turn, gave super class allies 2 ki and 30% defense, and youth category allies 30% attack. That key he gave to super class allies was generally so useful, since you just didn't want to miss a super attack in the Legendary Goku event. Like, you needed all the stacks you could get, so missing a super attack was actually very bad. The month of June ended with some teasers. The teaser for the next Battlefield LR, and the teaser of the next Dokkanfest, which thanks to Global, we knew it was going to be LR Gohan and Goten, something that we'll cover in the next history video. But until then, take care, peace.